France has just launched a bold, heroic operation, captured Donald Trump on foreign soil, and is now preparing to prosecute him for violating international law. Now, how do you see that? That's unthinkable, right? That's absurd. That's completely impossible, right? Because that will be kidnapping. That will violate sovereignty. That will shatter the so-called international order. But when the United States captures Maduro, the sitting president of Venezuela, and prepares to put him on trial on a trumped up charges, suddenly it is justice. Suddenly it is law. Suddenly it is democracy at work. You see, it's like it's rules for them, power for me. Now, let's see how outraged the Europeans are, the supposed pioneers of democracy and the rule of law. Here's how outraged Kastama is. He said, UK regarded Maduro as an illegitimate president and we shed no tears about the end of his regime. Hey, what about Kaja Kallas, EU top diplomat? She said, Maduro lacks legitimacy, that there should be a peaceful transition of power and that the principles of international law must be respected. You know, this is vague and this makes little sense, as she always makes. She always makes little sense, actually. Now, what about the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz? He said the legality of the US operation was, in quote, complex and international law generally must apply. He warned that political instability must not be allowed to arise in Venezuela. You can see this guy, how much they care about international law that they always preach about. What about the European Commissioner, the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen? Ursula von der Leyen. Ursula von der Leyen, she said, following very closely the situation in Venezuela, we stand by the people of Venezuela and support a peaceful and democratic transition. Any solution must respect international law and the UN Charter. This makes no sense. Now, let's see what Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel has to say. He said, congratulations, President real Donald Trump, for your bold and historic leadership on behalf of freedom and justice. I salute your decisive resolve and the brilliant action of your brave soldiers. What can he say? Okay, now Canada calls on all parties to respect international law, and we stand by the people of Venezuela and their desire to live in a peaceful and democratic society. See, Canada is telling Venezuela to respect international law. Now, here's a nice one coming from Norway. The foreign minister said, international law is universal and binding for all states. The American intervention in Venezuela is not in accordance with international law. Yes, I have to respect the Norwegians. You know, the guys, they are mature and they know what they are doing. So far, I think they are the most mature human beings on this planet Earth. About to them, Now, is it not interesting to witness hypocrisy in action? Many of the loudest voices preaching democracy, the rule of law, and the so-called international rules-based order know very well that this is not how the world actually works. They understand, perhaps better than anyone, that this world is not governed by law. It is governed by power. Let me tell you something. It is naive to believe that the earth is simply divided into nearly 193 equal and sovereign countries, all operating under the same rules. That idea exists mostly in textbooks and official speeches. In reality, the world operates under something else entirely. It operates under spheres of influence. A sphere of influence is a phenomenon in which a dominant power designates a particular geographical region as its own domain. Within that domain, the power claims implicitly and explicitly the right to shape political outcomes, economic systems, and even cultural identities. And this is done regardless of the interest or consent of the people living in that area. Now, did you know that there is a doctrine in the United States called Monroe Doctrine, under which the United States claims the entire Americas, both North and South America, including countries such as Mexico, Brazil, Venezuela, and others, as its fierce sphere of influence? Now, consider what is happening in Venezuela today. under the banner of democracy and human rights, actions are being taken that clearly violate the very international order they said to defend. If the so-called rules-based system were real, you would expect massive unified condemnation. But what do we see? What do we see instead? Silence, justification, selective outreach. And let's be honest, this is not new. We saw it in Iraq, we saw it in Libya, and now we are seeing it again in Venezuela. And it will happen again. Why not? Because a world governed by strength rather than law has no reason to stop. What is even more disturbing is how many individuals openly support these actions, not question them, not scrutinize them, support them. And that should concern all of us. Because what this signals is that independence and sovereignty, the idea that a country controls its own destiny, are steadily becoming obsolete. What we are witnessing is not a collection of independent states. What we are witnessing is the reality of an empire. And empires do what empires have always done. They extract, they dominate, they reshape the world in their own image. In such a system, no country's resources truly belong to its people. They belong to the empire. They are taken not for global good, but to enrich those at the center of power. Reserved primarily for citizens of the state where imperial power is headquartered. The rest of the world, they are expected to comply, supply, and submit. This reality might be less disturbing if it were at least honest, but it is not. It is camouflaged. Camouflaged with words like solidarity, righteousness, freedom, and most frequently, democracy. And that camouflage may be the most dangerous part of all. Because when domination is dressed as virtue, it becomes harder to question and easier to accept. So the question is not whether power rules the world. It has always. The real question is, how long will we continue pretending that it doesn't? If this conversation made you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is often the first step towards clarity. If you found value in this perspective, consider subscribing and sharing this discussion. Not because it is comfortable, but because it is necessary.